Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Today is Sunday the 1st of January 2017 and we're using the start of this new year to introduce one of our elders whose Christian name is Greg. If you go to our website illuminatisilver.com, we mention that we have a small number of elders whom we call upon to assist us in providing the inside track on a number of issues. Greg is such an elder. Now, before we introduce him to you, we wish to add that Greg will be a regular interviewee and contributor within our Inner Sanctum, an email about which will be sent to all of our website enrollees tomorrow. He is one of a number of people our Inner Sanctum members will be exposed to. The reason we keep him and others within this closed environment is that although we are delighted to help anyone who comes to our YouTube channel by providing generic advice and share our general views, we are very much aware of trolls who are attracted to the channel to spoil the experience and who try and use abusive language to put people off. Further, we have evidence that some of the pumpers we have mentioned and criticised have also used people to infiltrate and again attempt to debunk the advice or comments we make. The Inner Sanctum is more protected, in that we will have fewer people to communicate with, and therefore trolls can be more easily recognised, and the fact that there will be a small charge will put off most of those who are just out to create trouble. Now, before we start, we must apologise for the quality of some of the sound, as we are recording Greg, who happens at this time to be in a different country to where we are located. Hello, Greg. For the benefit of our listeners, please state who you are and tell us a little about your background.
Hi, my name is Greg. I was born at the end of World War II, grandson of a World War I old contemptible. Those were those who volunteered and were serving at the front prior to Christmas 1914. I'm also the son of a decorated wartime Spitfire fighter pilot who became involved after a period in India and the Middle East after the war in a return to the RAF, firstly in fighter training and the new generation of jets like the Meteor and Vampire. He then moved on into military intelligence. I was fortunate enough to have travelled extensively throughout my childhood and lived in a number of countries. An experience I capitalised on and extended into adult life. After a skirmish with a formal military career myself, where I was briefly in the Green Jackets, the light infantry, I then moved on to the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst, but due to ideological differences with the politicians at the time, I was unprepared to accept a commission in an army that at the time was contemplating invasion of Rhodesia. On behalf of dissidents like Mugabe, who were using weapons and intimidation for their personal gain, against the settled expat community who had developed the country as a land of stability, food surpluses, education for all, and increasing prosperity and security for what had so recently been tribal and nomadic warring groups like the Shona and the Tabele. I also believed we should be taking a more active role in the defeat of extreme socialism that had taken hold in Russia and risked spilling into Europe and large areas around the borders of the then USSR. Much in keeping with the aims of the KGB of the day and their efforts via the Frankfurt School more of which could be a discussion for a future occasion. From then on, I deliberately avoided a career path that would inhibit my travels and experiences, ranging from adventure and outdoor training to marketing, to starting and building various businesses in a number of countries where I've had experience in specialist business consulting, farming, dealing in precious stones and metals, and other occupations of interest. I have also been involved in politics, from actively campaigning for the decriminalisation of homosexuality in the early 1960s, to opposing apartheid whilst I lived in South Africa during the 1970s. I've been in contact with various governments at almost all levels. More recently in Britain, I've campaigned against Britain's membership of the EU, which I have opposed since the early 1960s, long before our politicians, in folly and self-interest, duped the public into what was then called the Common Market or European Economic Community.
Greg, if I may stop you there, you use the word duped. Can you clarify that and justify such a strong word?
Indeed I can. You only have to look at the facts presented and recorded in Hansard, which is the written output of House of Commons debates, and the long and erudite speech by Enoch Powell made in the February, which showed the aims of the European Economic Community were well known. The actual details imparted to the public were very different, such as Edward Heath's assurance at the time that clearly stated that joining the common market would lead to no essential loss of national sovereignty. Powell's warning was borne out in detail, whilst Heath was forced to admit years later that not only had he lied to the people prior to the original referendum, but had done so wittingly, as he did not believe they would vote in favour of membership had they known the truth. Just as Cameron and Osborne appeared to do, aided by Obama, Mark Carney, and a panoply of EU apparatchiks in the recent referendum.
Well, that will certainly be news to some of our listeners, though many on the Brexit side will have been aware of this to some extent.
One thing you must remember is that those who voted for Brexit were in the main much better informed than the Remainers. The reason for this that was over 40 years they had debated and researched the EU under its many guises, many of them actively campaigning to leave, whilst even the leaders of the Remain argument were very ill-informed, having rarely considered the matter out of both ignorance and arrogance, not to mention smug hubris.
Greg, that's a great intro for a much longer video debate. As we limit these videos to around 10 minutes, perhaps it would be appropriate just for you to mention some of the topics you'll be covering within our Inner Sanctum. For unknown to our subscribers at this stage, we aim to embark on a number of interviews with you, covering a whole range of geopolitical issues, which will be for the exclusive use of our Inner Sanctum members, where we hope you can bring valid food for thought, challenging ideas, an element of contrarian thinking, and even perhaps some outside-the-box suggestions, based on your wide-ranging experiences over many years. So what subjects, Greg, are foremost in your mind at this stage?
There are, of course, areas like the EU's Council of the Regions. Strangely, a limited company registered by a French politician in Paris, forcing on the people a concept of EU regionalisation of Britain as a prelude to breaking up these United Kingdoms. A move I strenuously opposed via the foundation of the No campaign, opposing the devolution of Wales. Few remember that almost throughout Britain, the people voted against regionalisation. And even in Wales, the vote had to be at best fudged, and in reality was a total swindle. And then, of course, we must at some time discuss the manner in which a British commissioner was sent back to Britain to destabilise the centre ground of British politics. And, of course, the manner in which the well-known serial failure, Neil Kinnock, was seemingly bribed to change his views, as with his and his wife's volte-face when offered preferment. I guess politics is, and always has been, a hard-nosed and dirty game. It is just that with dumbing down, it has become more of a grubby game, bringing itself into opprobrium. There is much to consider in this prescribed area, without even considering the proscribed areas such as Bilderberg, Bohemian Grove, and banking, the Rothschild conspiracies, etc. When they have been widely aired in the Inner Sanctum, we can consider moving on to geopolitics, energy and climate and the like, that are so often falsely presented.
You may be unaware, as we have not discussed this, Greg, but over 50% of our listeners come from the United States, with the next largest group being the UK, which represents 10%, and Canada closely follows. What areas will you cover that directly affect their interests and those of their nations?
I was unaware of this, but I felt it probable. America has a large contingency of private broadcasters. I won't go into names because they're in different fields. They are beset with conspiracy theory, frequently overlooking the fact that neither their government nor ours is capable of organising the simplest of tasks all too often. It is way beyond them to organise a competent conspiracy in almost any area. But we must look at things like the American arms organisations, such as the Carlyle Group, who take a very, dare I say, interfering lobby line within foreign policy and foreign politics. Or, for that matter, the fact that the CIA was heavily involved in clandestine creation of the European Union. In some ways, it is apparent that it was funded at its outset through the CIA. And they have definitely taken a very leading role amongst the Bilderbergers. There are many areas, far more than I believe the majority of the public realise, in which our political situations overlap. Hence, we so recently had Obama flying from America to participate in the British referendum on behalf of the Remain group. Some find it strange that he is now clamouring that the Russians interfered with the American election. The difference, of course, as we must realise, is that he acted in an honest manner with open speech, whereas it is quite clear that Russia, together with leak departments within the US political structure, deliberately acted in a clandestine manner in cyberspace, and just as they denied their involvement in drugging their athletes, I incline to the opinion that their denial of involvement in cyber tampering with the recent election, with or without Donald Trump, was in fact just as much a lie as their comment on drugs.
Greg, I'm afraid I shall have to stop you there and to thank you so very much. Some interesting food for thought and something for us all to look forward to. Please let us know in the comments section whether you think the topics Greg proposes to cover, which shall also include precious metals, by the way, but will be more politically and economically surveyed, will actually prove useful and of interest to you. We hope you have found this video interesting and informative, and if so, please give it a thumb up and share it on Twitter. Also, kindly visit our website at illuminatisilver.com, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe as a free member for regular email updates and offers. Our Facebook page, which is updated daily, can be found at facebook.com/illuminatisilver. Disclaimer. Illuminati silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its own.